Economic Secretary to the Treasury, of course. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us on the programme this morning. Inflation figures, static. What were you expecting?
Well, they're in line with expectations. So, look, when we set this out at the beginning of the year, we all said it was challenging, but it's the most important thing that we can do as a government to try and help ordinary folk, the bills that they're facing each day. It was good that within a flat overall inflation, that food inflation fell by a percentage point. That'll obviously speak to people's shopping baskets at the end of each month. So we're on track. It's not going to be easy. We always said it wouldn't be easy. We've had to take responsible but tough choices. But what today's inflation figures show that we agree with most commentators out there that we're on track to halve inflation this year.
The Bank of England will be looking at those figures. Interest rates at the moment, 5.25%, could go higher.
Well, they must make their decision. So, you know, the Bank of England is independent. They set their own rates. As I say, this was in line with our expectations and I believe most forecasters in the market. So my hope would be this doesn't particularly change people's expectations. And the most important thing that we can do is continue to make those responsible and tough choices to achieve the target this year.
How concerned are you that the Bank of England may increase rates still further?
Well, we're doing everything that we can to try and help the economy and to help households. And I understand the impact and the worry that people have about rising interest rates. The best way we can deal with that is not by putting extra borrowing in the economy, making every pound that government spends as productive as possible. And that, I hope, will give the Bank of England, who we support, the space to do their job, but minimise the impact of interest rates on people.
Are you concerned or not?
We're always concerned about the impact on ordinary people, Kay, and that's the big challenge of interest rates. So what's the bit the government can do? What we can do is be responsible with our public finances, not make promises about spending or indeed tax cuts that can't be financed and would put more pressure on inflation and more pressure on interest rates. Of course concerned, but we're doing everything that is within our control to try and minimise that on people.
September is generally the month that you use with inflation for benefits for next year. 6.7%, is that what you're going to work with?
We've just had, I think 5 minutes ago, the numbers. So you're absolutely right. It's normally the case that following the September release of headline inflation, that my colleagues in government, the Department of Work and Pensions Secretary, assesses and makes recommendations about what to do with public benefits. So that process has yet to happen. It wouldn't be right to come out immediately after today's figures. We should let that process run. Last year, as you'll remember, we increased benefits by 10% to protect people, one of the largest ever increases in that. Yeah,
but you did say this is in line with expectations, so that's a figure that you were working with. So
yeah, and there's simply just a process to be followed. It's right that we let that process in the same way as every other year. You know, we take that number, we put that into the process, and in due course update with whatever the government's plans are. But we're always going to be responsible, Kate.
OK, talk to me about what's happening in the Middle East overnight. How are we going to discover who is responsible for that atrocity at the hospital overnight?
Well, first of all, the destruction that we all saw, and I watched on Sky News last night, is devastating, the destruction of that Al Ali hospital. And the protection of civilians, the UK has always been very clear that the protection of civilians is the most important thing. We will work with allies. As you know, the Prime Minister is heavily involved in all of the diplomatic efforts in the Middle East. We'll work with allies to try and ascertain what happened. It's important at this point, everybody's responsible. We don't rush to any judgments. But it's also important that international law is upheld.
Both sides blaming each other.
And you know, that's obviously in the fog of these things, in the immediate aftermath. You know, it's right that, you know, first of all, we regret any loss of human life. You know, the events taking place right now in the Middle East are terrible. What we saw in Gaza, but also before that, what we saw in Israel. Very, very difficult matters. The UK's doing everything it can. It's given more humanitarian aid to Gaza. It's working with the Egyptians. The Prime Minister's spoken to President Sisi about opening humanitarian aid corridors, allowing people to leave if they can.
If it's proven and we don't know because both sides are blaming each other, if it's proven that it was an IDF rocket that caused the death of hundreds of people sheltering in a hospital, will our Prime Minister still go to Israel tomorrow?
Well, I'm not going to get in, and I hope you'll understand, I'm not going to get into conjecture either about the Prime Minister's movements. He's heavily engaged in the diplomatic efforts. He's spoken to most of the Middle East leaders, as well as remaining in close contact with the US President. I don't think we know that. I don't think we should.
I think it's
get
in all of the papers,
into
and I think we do know.
into speculation either about that.
What can he achieve by going?
But the UK has a strong record of working with countries around the world, of supporting both the protection of civilians in any conflict theatre, but also in maintaining international law and indeed the international rules-based order.
But I think we can both agree that hitting a hospital is against international law.
Well, we can both agree that this is a devastating loss of human life, and we're seeing that across the region, which is why it's so important that we see so many diplomatic efforts to try and minimise that after the horrifying events that, the terrorist organisation Hamas inflicted on innocent civilians in Israel.
When he goes to Israel, should he also go to Egypt?
I think it's good to talk. It's good to talk, and the UK has a really strong voice. And I know that the Prime Minister is in close contact with many Middle East leaders. He's met the President of Jordan. He's spoken to President Abbas. He's obviously spoken to Prime Minister Netanyahu. That's one really important role for the United Kingdom. Giving humanitarian aid is another, and moving assets to the region, primarily to help with intelligence gathering and humanitarian aid, as the Royal Navy has done, is another really important role for the UK.
How concerned should we be, finally, about the situation in the UK at the moment? The head of MI5 says he's very concerned.
I think we should all be concerned. It's one reason why we should all be really responsible with our language, not rush to judgment, deeply regret all loss of human life, whether that's in Gaza or whether that's in Israel, and try and support all of the diplomatic efforts to minimise the terrible impact on innocent civilians. And that's what we're talking about on either side.
It's good to see you, Mr. Griffith. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on the programme. Thank you.